I'm going to come on to the last key part of things now. This is the part that is probably most variable, I would say, across parish and town councils. What am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about an IT policy. What is an IT policy? Well, an IT policy is really no different to any other policy that you have ratified in your council. It's a set of instructions. It's a set of information that says this is how we do things. Well, the IT policy is here to wrap all of the things that I've talked about today together. It's wrapping all around it, and it's providing it as a complete piece. It's the set of instructions. Now, obviously, being a man, I don't read instructions, but an IT policy is for all of those sensible people that do read instructions. It is your council's position on how you want people who work for the council, so staff, but also members, maybe volunteers, anybody who uses the council's communication, the software and hardware to conduct business. Because you want a set of, let's call it rules of engagement. Now, you can also wrap into this IT policy things like personal equipment. So at Eaton Bray Parish Council, where I'm a councillor, I have my Eaton Bray Parish Council email on my personal phone. And that's okay because we permit it as part of our IT policy. But we have a set of rules that says when or if I were to leave as a councillor I must remove that account from my phone, and the clerk or member of staff will then change the logins for that email account so that I can no longer use it. It's a set of instructive rules because we aren't always going to be councillors and clerks in the councils that we're in, and we want to leave a good instructive legacy for those people who come into the seat afterwards. But also, and dare I say it, like it happened at my own council a few months ago, we had a member of the public appear in the public gallery. Shock, horror. Usually we stare at empty seats, but we had a guy sit there. A public open forum, 10 minutes. Would you like to introduce yourself, sir? And what is it that you're here for? Well, I'd like to become a parish councillor. A gasp went out. Fresh meat. Well, anyway, he presented himself very well and he was co-opted there and then. I think it took about 11 seconds. No, I'm joking. He was co-opted. But we had an IT policy for him to read to make sure that he understood how to use his .gov.uk email address and how he should conduct himself online. So what are, surely there are templates. Well, there are. More recently, NALC have issued a pretty good starting point. There is a very good starting point that NALC created off the back of the SAPPP, Smaller Authorities Proper Practices panel, their draft one that came out when the Practitioner's Guide was issued. But bear this in mind, please. Whilst you can go and download it for free from the NALC website, it's a starting point. It's a conversation starter for you and any colleagues and your councillors. It talks about the main things that you need to consider, such as what happens when there is a data breach. What are the processes that you need to follow when it comes to emails and rescinding and providing access and so on. There's no boilerplate that's going to be just a straight copy and paste for you, I'm afraid, because your computers, your software, all of your individual setups are unique to you and your council. But those templates do have a very good starting point, but you are going to need to adjust them to make them suitable for you. Please bear in mind when you are doing that, consider data leaks, breaches, so email accounts getting hacked, shared files accidentally getting out into the public or being mishandled. Having a process, what happens if? Because you're experienced clerks, you may know what to do. But an inexperienced clerk might come into the post. And if you don't have the process written down in your IT policy, they might not know what to do. Having a statement in the IT policy that says all parish councillors and council staff will use council provided email addresses only for their email communications, and they will not use their personal email addresses for any council communications. This is a really good thing to put into your IT policy because it gives you the vehicle to be able to enforce to those councillors who might be a little bit resistant at shifting from their Hotmail because that's on their phone and that's what they've always used. The problem for you as a council is lost communications. You can't fulfill your regulatory responsibilities when it comes to SAR or FOI if those emails that relate to something important are stuck in Big Bob 68 yahoo.co.uk's email address. So have those rules written into your email because it gives you the vehicle, it gives you the teeth to be able to say to Councillor A, we ratified this policy and that 3 months ago you agreed to it and yet you are still using your Hotmail address. Also, things like cyber threats, or rather cyber security prevention, have something in there that says all councillors and staff will have an industry standard antivirus on their computers. If you don't define it, you can't expect people to have it after the event if something goes wrong. These sorts of things are all worth considering. Now, a lot of these things are baked into those templates that are part of that NALC starting point. But consider the specifics to your parish and your town. For example, you might have CCTV in your parish or your town. And as such, who has access to the CCTV data? Who can log in? Who can look at that? It's worth you writing some information about who should and shouldn't and what happens to that data into your IT policy. Now, don't replicate things in your IT policy that are in other policies. Just refer to those other policies in your IT policy. But you are going to need to have an IT policy as part of your Assertion 10 compliance. What goes into a good IT policy? Well, always define the scope and the purpose at the beginning. What are you trying to include in it and who is it for? So all councillors, all staff, all volunteers, anybody who conducts business on behalf of the parish council. Purpose. The purpose is to improve the security and robustness of the council's IT and data. Start to think about other aspects. Data retention. How long do you hold on to data? You might already have a data retention policy. If you do, great. If you don't, consider having one. Because you should not be holding on to data ad infinitum just in case that person emails you to say, 11 years ago we wrote to you to tell you that the dog bin was going to fall off its hinges and it has now. Don't hold on to that email indefinitely because it's containing personally identifiable information. You don't need to. Have a data retention policy that gives you the ability to purge unneeded data at certain intervals. Now, you might like to also consider wrapping into your IT policy, particularly if you're a smaller council, social media use and the boundaries. Social media, I think, is going to be a little bit of outside of the scope of today. All I would say to you is have rules of engagement for social media, because if you don't, there will be at some point somebody who goes off the rails, a councillor who comments accidentally as a councillor or on behalf of the council on Facebook, and Pandora's box lid has been opened. So if you don't have a social media policy, definitely something worth sticking on the agenda over the next couple of months for council to consider, along with a data retention policy. So those are the sorts of things that make a good IT policy. Don't make it too technical. Don't try and get fancy with yourself. Use plain English, because if you can understand it, then people who follow on from you will also understand it. And also, don't make it too onerous. Don't say things like, everybody will perform a weekly antivirus check on all devices. Great idea, never going to happen. You can always improve things, but at least have a starting point. Because without the IT policy, notwithstanding the fact that it is now going to be required on your AGAR, but without it, there's no rules and there's no guidance. As those new councillors come in, passing them the IT policy for them to read at the same point as their onboarding signing forms is a good practice thing to do. Straight away, they know what they should and they shouldn't do. So look, we've brought all of this to a close now. Now, SLCC, your county association, will have those IT policy templates for you to start. Don't start from a blank page, and make sure that you adjust it to make it work for your council and get it adopted before the end of March. What I would always say is make sure that everybody's trained. Make sure that people understand what it is to use council email. You know, we flippantly talk about these things, but not everybody knows. So make sure that as a council, you're always allowing a little bit of time for training, an experienced councillor perhaps to show a new one coming in. And of course, like all policies, make sure that they are reviewed annually, because your IT infrastructure, your software, how you do things in the course of a year will almost certainly change. If you're going to be changing your accounting package across to, for example, Scribe, you're going to want to make sure that those sorts of things are factored into the IT policy. So we've brought the session to an end. I want to reinforce the fact that this is not a paperwork exercise. This is bringing together all of the things that improve the overall IT robustness and professionalism. It's wrapping in some processes that have all been out there already: website accessibility compliance, having a domain name, being able to fulfill your GDPR responsibilities, getting into that data. All of these things are known, but it's bringing it together into a holistic single element.